Hello everybody and welcome back to the Thread Vault. Today, we have 4 true scary stories for you to enjoy. But before we begin, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And also don't forget to write a comment. I would be more than happy to read and respond to all your comments. With that out of the way, let's begin. Alright, starting with the first story of today's video. Creepy Stalker. This has happened to me about 6 years ago. I was doing my usual routine of walking around town for a few hours as I enjoyed walking, and I was getting my steps in for the day. I'd always start from my house, walk around town for a few hours, then turn around and head back home. I'd always go walking around noon or an hour or two later at the latest. My walks would start at 11 a.m. at the earliest or 2 p.m. at the latest. This day in particular, I had a bunch of things to do, so I was unable to go out walking before noon. I'd eventually finished up everything that I needed to do, but it was already in the mid to late afternoon. I checked the time, and it was almost 3 p.m. I debated whether or not if I should go walking, or if I should go tomorrow instead, since I had nothing going on the next day. I said fuck it, and decided to go for my walk. But I told myself that I had to cut it short, since I didn't want to be out after sunset, since it would get pretty cold at night. I got dressed and headed out to get my walk in for the day. Fast forward almost 3 hours later. I looked at my phone to check the time, saw that it was almost 6 p.m., and started to make my way back home. I had a bit of a problem, which was I was about 6 miles away from my home, and it would take me about an hour and a half or more to get there. The sun had fully gone down, and there was only a faint orange glow in the sky from it. The night sky had begun to take over, and the air was turning cold. I began to make my way home, and had picked up the pace as I didn't want to be outside when it was cold. I was about 2 miles away from my home and thought I was in the clear when I was wrong. I passed by a convenience store when I noticed a man sitting on the side of the building smoking a cigarette. The man looked to be in his early to mid-30s, wore a black hoodie, black pants, and black shoes. I saw him turn his head toward me, and he gave me a blank stare. I thought nothing of it and just ignored it. I turned around a few moments later and saw he had gotten up from his spot and began walking the same direction I was going. I kept checking behind me often to see if he would turn down another street, but he never did. After several minutes of him walking the same way as me, I hear the man start yelling, "Hey!" He then started saying other stuff to try and get my attention, which I ignored. Right after that, I heard him yell, "What the fuck?" at me in an angry tone. I sped up and didn't dare to look back at that point. I texted my dad and explained that there's some creepy guy following me and how he was yelling at me. My dad replies, asking me how far I am, and I say about less than a mile away. He replies back that to keep walking, don't worry, and that he'll come and get me in the next few minutes. I turned behind me to see if he's still following me as he stopped yelling, and he was, unfortunately. I was 3/4 of a mile away from my house, and I thought about just running there. At the same time, I didn't want this guy to follow me and find out where I lived. I was about to turn down the street I lived at when something told me not to. I texted my dad and told him I passed the street and to go the other way, which he replied with okay. I kept going forward, passing the street, when all of a sudden, I heard some kind of frantic noise. I turned around, only to see to my horror that the guy put his hood up and was sprinting straight towards me. Without hesitation, I bolted straight ahead and ran across the street. I kept running for what felt like hours until I saw a pair of headlights coming down the street. I waved my arms like a madman, hoping they would see me. Thankfully, they did, and the car stopped. I got closer and saw it was my dad. I looked behind me only to see that the man who was chasing me had somehow disappeared. I got in the car and explained everything to him. He said that he was going to drive down the street to see if he could find the man and would confront him. We drove down the street only to see nobody walking on the sidewalk or hiding behind the bushes. There was no sign of anyone being out as the streets were empty. From that day on, I never go out walking after 2 p.m. And I since then carry a pocket knife with me whenever I go out walking for my own safety and protection. I don't know what that man would have done to me if he had caught me, and I don't think I ever want to know. Halloween 1998. I'm in my 50s now, so might as well write this one up on the internet. Never really liked these forum pages because of all the nonsense. But whatever. I also never was a big fan of Halloween. I'm the boring guy. I don't really want to go out like that. I'd much rather stay home by myself. The date I started this post with is the last I can remember, where I almost had a nervous breakdown. I'm a vet, and without going into too much detail, nothing throws me off. I've seen the worst, and the only thing that gets to me now are my random nightmares. So, I just got off work, coming back home on Halloween Day. Wasn't really tired, but also not in the mood for trick-or-treaters. I don't decorate on purpose, just so the kids on my block know not to come to my house. I don't want to be bothered. Take a shower, eat dinner, and have my drink for the night. Around, I'd say, 11 or 12, I hear this loud banging coming from my front door. Now I'm irritated. Whoever was on my porch sounded like they were going to break the damn door down. Half drunk, I go look out the window. Memory's a little foggy, but I thought I saw someone standing near my walkway. I opened the door, yelled out something like, "Who's there?" and slammed the door back. I'm really heated now. Another maybe hour passes, and that same heavy pounding came from the front of the house. My patience has run out now, so I grab my shotgun and go to the door. I peek out the window and see this kid standing at my door this late into the night. Not gonna lie, I let my guard down. I felt kinda bad for this kid too. I mean, it's late, I don't see any parents, so what the hell was going on here? Putting my gun down, I open the door and get a better look at him. This kid looked like he had his school clothes on, but he had this scary ass mask on. If any of you have seen that movie From Dusk Till Dawn, his mask looked just like Frost's face when he turned into a vampire. Okay, weird, but I could tell it was a mask. I can't remember what I said beat for beat, but the kid didn't answer anything I was asking him. At the end of my questions, I say something like, "It's getting pretty dark, kid. Why don't you go home, man?" Now, when I say this, the kid just stands there, silent. I thought about calling the cops, but by this time I'm feeling that brandy. I sort of turn the kid around and say, "Go home." I would have helped him more, but like I said, I was drunk. None of that shit mattered anyway, as I was about to find out. I close my door, hop in my bed, and get some rest. Sometime in the morning, that same crazy knocking happened. I shoot up out of bed, and the first two things I notice is I'm sweating. For some reason, I'm scared, or like I feel scared, and the house is dark. Grab my gun again and head out to the front door. This time, nobody was outside. This is when that panic attack started to kick in. I ran downstairs to go flip the lights back on, and nothing was blown. No noise, no knocking, just a dark house. I go to my neighbors, and their lights are on, so I make a call to the power company. Out of all the houses on my block, mine was the only one to lose power, nobody else's. I couldn't help but think of that kid. I don't know, maybe he did something, but for sure I've never been unsettled by something like that outside of combat. So I never thought I'd have my fears of supernatural things come true, but it happened nonetheless. I have a friend. We will be referring to him as D, and I will be C. My friend D lives in a place where there are no neighbors, and he said there are skinwalkers haunting the woods surrounding his house. Even his mom and his whole family believes it. The first day we were there, we were training outside for the first day. That night, we were outside at around 10 p.m. taking the trash out. We were talking and stuff when I heard something snap, followed by something falling. It was fall, and I heard the leaves as it fell. When I looked up at the hill, I heard it, at around 10 feet away from me and D. There was this creature, a pale, white, and skinny creature getting up from the leaves and dislocating its own shoulder blades. I was petrified. It stared at me for 5 solid seconds before I used all the cardio training I've been doing and sprinted to the house. D just stared at it. And on the following day, we found a booby trap that was set to hunt animals, and it was broken. The trap was set 2 feet away from where we saw it. And on the second night, it was late and we were both in D's room. We heard a screech, a non-animal, non-human screech that sent shivers down my spine. He had seen this and said Do not be afraid. It feeds on fear. I had tried to stay calm. But on the third and final day, afternoon, we were out and going to where he had claimed there was a weird portal or area that is connected to the Skinwalker. Once we had arrived, it was blocked off by trees. We were weirded out and looked at each other. Everything went silent, the trees, winds, the cats outside, even the leaves falling. And then I saw it in the distance. We had both been creeped out, and I just stared back. Me and him still talk about what we saw then. Me and him love that. I'm gonna get a ghillie suit, and when I can visit again, I'll be in those woods looking for it. I lived in an apartment that was built in the 70s or 80s. It was a premier property back then, but over the years, it saw its best days fade. It had a mixed population. The complex was built on very uneven ground and historically sat on Native American lands. The area was also known for many skirmishes and deaths. I lived in 2 locations within that complex. At first, I lived in the midsection of the building, on the 2nd floor near the management office. I never had any major issues there except for the mouse problem. The straw that broke my back was when I finally saw a roach. That prompted me to move out. The ladies in the office offered me an apartment at the other end of the building with some new furnishings. It was a corner unit on the 3rd floor, far from the roaches. I was very happy with the offer because I had initially wanted to live on the top floor in a corner unit. Fewer neighbors and no footsteps walking above you, or so I thought. I was satisfied with the move once I got settled. It was so quiet, no roaches, and far fewer mice. Eventually, I broke my lease because of the mice, but I digress. My partner at the time, now my wife, and I began experiencing something odd. We would hear footsteps above us every day, even though we were on the top floor. The footsteps seemed to follow us from the bedroom to the living room. I started noticing a pattern. When we went to bed and settled in for the night, we'd hear footsteps enter the room, pace in a circle in the corner, and finally settle there. The same thing happened when we went into the living room. The footsteps would eventually follow us, pace in a circle in the corner of the room, and then stop and settle. This complex had a slanted roof, so I thought it might be possible for someone to be in the attic space. But why would they choose to be above our apartment? Why would they follow us from room to room? If I were hiding in an attic, I'd be very quiet to avoid exposing my hiding spot. So my theory of a stowaway didn't hold up. I also considered the possibility of neighbors downstairs, but the sound was distinctly coming from above us, and even more so, it felt like it was in our apartment. I came to the conclusion that the apartment was haunted by a spirit. I put this out to my partner, but she preferred to ignore spirits because of her spiritual background. She believes in spirit, but doesn't engage with them unless she feels threatened. I, on the other hand, don't mind spirits and consider myself open to the paranormal and somewhat of a demonologist. I almost became a priest and wanted to enter the field of exorcism, but I also wanted a family and respected the cloth. I've been told I have the gift of discernment. I see things or the truth in people. I also see things from the past, have visions of the future, and have had remote viewing experiences. But I digress. Regarding the entity in the apartment, all I could see in my mind's eye was a white man in his mid to late 20s, bearded and somewhat disheveled. He wore a flannel shirt and blue jeans. This man would follow us from room to room, walking upside down on the ceiling, pacing in a circle, and finally settling. He would sit cross-legged, facing my partner and me during our daily routines, silently watching us. I had one other significant experience in that apartment. My partner lived very close to me, so close I could see her home from my apartment. One evening, she left for the night and I went to bed. As I started to fall asleep, I felt my bed shaking. I calmly assessed my surroundings. I listened for the train several miles away, which we could faintly feel if it was heavy, but there was no train. I thought I might have pinched a nerve, so I adjusted my body, now laying on my back. The bed continued to shake, harder than before. At this point, I became concerned. I had never experienced anything like this before. I decided it might be spiritual in nature and said the Our Father prayer. The bed continued to shake for about 30 seconds after the prayer. I called my partner to see if she wanted to come back and stay the night. She agreed but told me about her strange experience at her place. She lived with her grandmother. When she got home that evening, she went to open her locked bedroom door, but the door wouldn't budge. She pushed and pushed with all her strength, but the handle wouldn't turn, and the door stayed shut. This freaked her out a bit, so she told her grandmother. Her grandmother, who was wise and spiritually powerful, came to the door. She cranked the handle as hard as she could, pushed, and the door eventually gave way. This all happened around the same time my bed was shaking. It was strange and coincidental. My partner eventually came to my rescue, and I felt much better with her there that night. Thanks for reading. We've had so many strange and astonishing experiences over the years. What's even better is that she has been my bear witness, and I hers. We've also had other witnesses too. Right, folks, so this is the end of the video. I hope you had a great time, and I hope you had a lot of fun. As much fun as I've had making the video, collecting the stories, recording, and even editing. So, as you can probably tell, this is probably the most I've ever worked on a video. This took me about 2 or 3 days to make because this whole new editing and recording and all this, it's honestly new to me. But to be honest with you, I've learned a lot, and I've had a lot of fun just making this video. So I would appreciate it so much if you would like, subscribe, and share this video. And I would even appreciate it like 10 times more if you would write a comment. You guys don't know how much it would make me feel if I actually interact with you. This would make me literally so happy. So thank you for watching, and look forward for more videos. Now that I have the experience, I'll be able to shoot more of these videos, and I'll be able to pop out like a whole lot more of these videos, and the quality would be better. And I hope I can find the balance between quantity and quality. Thank you for watching.